market watcher Scott Martin, former Reagan economic advisor Diana Roth. Diana, I'm always reminded on occasions like these, blessedly rare as they are, that so too is the rare sense of bipartisan camaraderie that develops afterwards. And I always think it's just a pity that can't remain, you know?
Yes, I think it really is a pity, because that's what everybody needs to get healthcare reform through and tax reform through. And the data were a little bit softer today. Oil prices down, commodity prices down, retail sales down, CPI down. So we really do need some oomph to be added to the economy, and tax reform is the best way to do that.
All right, Scott Martin, I'm wondering, too, you know, we've seen the markets resilient been abroad, specifically in Britain, after the terror attacks there, 3 in as many months. And after each one, relatively subdued response. So I'm looking at our reaction here to something that could have been, as I say, a whole lot worse, and a collective shrug. What do you make of that?
It's amazing these days how the markets can just move on in the future, Neil. You know, you look back, I mean, even, gosh, look back at the terrible September 11th attacks, you know, many, many years ago. If you purchased stocks the many days after the markets were closed and actually held them through the end of the year and so forth into 2002, you actually made money. You know, the markets bounced back considerably after those attacks. And so the reality is, while a lot of these attackers and these disruptors wish to rob us of our freedom, rob us of our economic activity, the reality is that the energy just becomes stored, and so the markets move on. And so, yes, maybe there's a small hiccup for a matter of minutes while the evidence gets sorted out, but in the longer term, the economy moves on, the markets move on, and unfortunately, we digest more of these incidents every day.
You know, Diana, I wonder if it's a matter of just getting used to it, too. I mean, which is sad in and of itself.
Well, prices in markets are set more by long-term than short-term developments. And as unfortunate and tragic as this shooting is, it isn't something that moves the prices of commodities or future earnings. So I wouldn't say that this is something that would move markets. On the other hand, the attacks of September 11th, that really did cause more money to be spent on security. It did cause a change, and so we can see that a larger development such as that.
And by the way, that was a much bigger attack. It was at the financial center of the world. I mean, so obviously there are distinctions there. But I am wondering, too, Scott Martin, what this portends. I mean, if there is this talk of maybe more cooperation, and maybe tomorrow night's baseball game will be an example of that, could there be more talk of progress on other things, that whatever on tax laws, whatever your views on some of these other issues, and both sides have them, that they can carve out some sort of acceptable middle ground or progress on any of them?
Yeah, let's hope this stokes the camaraderie, Neil, that you talked about previously here, because the reality is we need it. The economy needs it, the markets need it, and there's just been such a divide in D.C. since Trump got into the White House that it almost feels like the House and the Senate just want to go against him because they want to go against him, not because the policies are necessarily bad. So to have this incident, you know, with respect to this shooter, you know, he went out with this mindset of dividing the country and causing death and destruction. Maybe this has a silver lining to it, where it actually brings D.C. and the country together to realize that we are in this together. We have to move forward, and that it starts with economic progress, tax reform, and the like.
But I wouldn't hold my breath. I wouldn't hold my breath. I don't think it's going to lead to more unity.
Do you know, what we do know is, guys, is there's a lot of anger out there still. Anger on the right toward the left, anger on the left toward the right. But it is unprecedented at this stage here, where people still reject the notion of Donald Trump as president, and a refusal to work for any of his goals, and conversely, Republicans to even entertain working with Democrats on the health care front. So there is still a lot of that antipathy, and I just wonder what, if anything, it'll take to change that, or that's just the way it is? What do you think, Scott?
I think that's the way it is for now, Neil. It's been easy to be, I guess, caught up in that environment because, frankly, it's a new environment. You know, Donald Trump is a new president as far as somebody different than we've had in the White House prior to. So there's an adjustment period here, and I believe that it's easy for people to stay in the mindset of saying, I don't like him, I don't like his policies, I don't want to read what he's proposing because I just think it's bad. But the reality is, for the sake of the country, And for the sake of every American, Congress needs to legislate. As Stuart Varney likes to say, they need to govern. And therefore, that means take a look at these policies, think about the benefits that they may have for everyone, and act on them, good or bad.
All right, guys, I want to thank you both very, very much. Again, not much action in these markets one way or the other. We've got former Home Depot.